So what I was saying is I'm going to be going through a bit of a continuation of what I completed in session 1. So I'm going to go a little bit more into some of the detailed work that you can do when you're creating your planting design, and some of the tools, the additional tools that are available on Google Earth Pro that can help give you some more specific details about your areas, your management areas, whether that's planting areas, grazing areas, um, other activity areas, or places where you potentially want to do some fencing or something like that. So I just want to reiterate that kind of the overall goal for doing these walkthroughs is to help you develop a map and a project area plan to go along with your entire management plan that we'll be presenting on next Tuesday. So the demo today, I'm just going to go through a couple of quick things, and many of you seem like you're fairly familiar with using Google Earth Pro already. So I apologize if this is a bit redundant, and if you happen to have things that you can think of off the top of your head that you are interested in finding out how to do on here, I'll try my best to do that for you if we have time at the end too. But I think for today, the main things that I want to show you are how to measure features out. So using the ruler tool that's available on Google Earth Pro, I'm going to show you how to determine the area of the riparian management areas. So I'm talking like the area measurement of the particular sites that you've generated or are looking at for your management plan. And I'm going to briefly go over how you can determine the number of seedlings that you potentially would plant in a particular area based on the measurements that you find in the first couple of steps we go through. And then just kind of as a final step, I'll show you some tips and tricks about changing the colors and opacity of your polygons and lines and things like that, so you can differentiate between certain areas on the landscape or on your map as well. So just to get started, I'll go through really briefly measuring. So the measuring tool is fairly straightforward, and again, I'll have these notes on the resources webpage after today if you need some help walking through any of these steps. I have it step by step for you. So the measuring tool is pretty straightforward and easy to use. You just find the toolbar at the top of the page, and it's literally just a ruler, so very simple. There's a lot of different selections that you can make. You can map out a line, you can map out a polygon, circles, all sorts of different things. So just pick what is most relevant for you. So in this case, I mean, potentially you might be mapping out the perimeter, the dimensions of an area that you're thinking about putting some kind of fencing in for livestock around the riparian area. So you can do that very quickly and easily without having to go out into the field. I mean, it obviously does help to do a ground truth and do some field assessment before you start buying materials, but this can give you a brief overview and kind of an estimated area, right, just from the touch of your computer. So it's really handy to use, like I'd mentioned before, kind of in the off season. So it's pretty straightforward. You kind of just click on the edge of the area where you want to measure. So I'll just kind of select this shelter belt here, and we'll measure that for the example today. So you just click directly on the screen with this cursor where you want to start your measurement, and then just drag the tool to where you want to end your measurement, and you can click down again, and that kind of saves your position there. So as you can see, as I went through, the nice feature is that it will tell you live the measurement of the particular area that you're working with. So you can kind of see, maybe you already have a set fence line in mind, so you can kind of drop your point at a particular number if that's what you're interested in. There's also the option to go through and use different units. So whether you want to measure in kilometers, meters, centimeters, feet, whatever is relevant and most accessible for yourself. Ooh, there's a phone call coming in. The same can be done doing Polygon. So as I have here, the polygon that I drew out last time, you can do something very similar with that, kind of just measuring out the same points. and getting the area for the polygon this way as well. And again, you can change your units here to something that is relevant to your project, your plan, both in area and perimeter for those polygons. So it's a really handy tool for that. There's actually one additional way to kind of get the same type of information I'll go through with you right now. I should say, if you do want to save the features that you measure out, you can do that. So it's just a matter of, clicking on both sides. Once you're comfortable with the area that you're working with, you can select save, and then just find it in temporary places and drag it to your relevant project site. So it's fairly straightforward to do those that particular step too. But if you already happen to have your polygon drawn out, like I do here from session 1, instead of having to go through and measure everything with this particular tool, you can actually use the drawing that you've created already and get the area or get measurements from that as well. So you just find the name in your relevant project file. You'll go to the named feature that you've drawn out. I guess it could be one of many features that you potentially have drawn out in step 1 or section 1. So you're going to right click on that and go down to properties. That'll bring you to your information page for this particular feature. You can move around some of these points and things like that too when this is opened. You're aware of that. But to get the measurements of your perimeter, your area, you're just going to go right to the measurement tab. And again, it's very straightforward. You can select whatever units that you want. So quite often, I mean, for myself, I use meters and hectares because they're very easily convertible, but you can use kind of whatever makes the most sense for yourself. Again, once you're kind of completed with all of the work that you want to do, you're just going to click OK, and that will save all your work for you. And one other feature I want to show you while I'm on this page as well is you can also do a little bit of stylizing of your features. You can change the colors, you can change the opacity. So just to give you an example, I'm going to change this to, let's say, like red. So you can change both the line color and you can change the fill color. Now, the problem is typically, if you have 100% opacity, you really can't see through that big block of color, which it's not the most handy for when you're actually doing any kind of management plan. It's kind of nice to see what's going on underneath. So you can lower it. We recommend somewhere around 30 or 40% in the manual for riparian forest buffer establishment. And that just gives it a little bit less color so that you can actually kind of see through the polygon or the line or whatever that you've drawn up, and you can still very easily recognize that there is a particular kind of vegetation there as well. So again, when you want to finish with that, you can just select OK, and that will save all your changes, and you can kind of stylize each particular area to make them really really different and really obvious for what is going on there. So I think mostly I've gone through the things that I wanted to with you today. I guess the one additional thing I wanted to walk through with you just briefly is something that can also be found in the manual for riparian forest buffer establishment. That's another resource that's on the resource webpage, and it goes through a lot of the steps that Luke talked about as far as the planting procedure goes, or planting plan design procedure goes. So in that reference, we actually have a very good breakdown of calculating the number of seedlings required for your planting design. And this is all based on project areas. So as you can see in this table 5 here, which will be listed in these instructions as well, so you should be able to use, but it actually gives you some of the recommended spacings and kind of your number of seedlings expected per hectare. So kind of once you have your total area, you can do a little bit of conversions and determine based on these spacings, whether, typically in a riparian setting, we tend to go with a little bit more dense spacing. So occasionally we'll do like a 1 meter spacing, or sometimes even less than 1 meter spacing. So this is kind of the relevant number of seedlings that you would be using per hectare. And you can kind of design a little bit of a table to keep things organized for yourselves as well based on the particular area. This is a little bit small. I'm just gonna try to expand.
Sorry, Rebecca, we can only see your Google Earth Pro screen right now.
Oh, okay.
You switch to the screen that you're talking about with the
Yeah.
table 5 and the.
Thank you. Okay, here, I will get that going for you right now.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay.
You want to show table 5? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So table 5, sorry guys. Thanks for letting me know. So this is table 5 that's got some of those spacings and the amount of seedlings per area based on the spacing. So yeah, like I was suggesting, in riparian areas, quite often we'll utilize the 1 meter spacing. When we're planting eco buffers, again, we do the 1 meter spacing. When you get up into more of a shelter belt design or something like that, you get into more of this 2 to 3 meter spacing between trees, which is roughly 1,600 stems per hectare, which is a little bit more of a standard spacing, but you can kind of play around with these numbers and values to determine what works best for your site based on, I guess, the amount of labor and the cost that goes along with it. And there's a really good breakdown of how to organize your sites, areas, and then determine the number of seedlings per hectare. So again, on page 66 of the Riparian Forest Buffer Establishment Manual, we have a really good description of how to do that kind of organization and how to come to the total number of seedlings per hectare. So I would definitely recommend going through this if you're considering doing any kind of planting in your riparian management plan. You can definitely apply this to your overall presentation and planning in the future and stuff like that too. So